Hey everyone, I'm Mike.
My name's Parker.
Hey guys, I'm Sid.
And this is the Try Hard podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to a much anticipated episode of the Try Hard podcast. Joining us for the second time ever is the one and only. You're gonna have to pronounce your last name because I know it has some French pronunciation, but Zachary, and then
Bernier-Michaud.
there you go, Zachary Bernier-Michaud. Now, Zach, when did you join us for the first time? What race was it after?
That was after Coeur d'Alene 70.3.
That's right. And you went sub four there, right?
Yeah, well, the swim was shortened.
Close
So,
enough.
but then I went sub 4 in the challenge race in like sub
Exactly.
yeah, 70, yeah. I've been sub
Yeah.
4.
But the reason why Zach is joining us once again is not because he went under 4 hours in another half Ironman, but because Zach pretty much smoked everyone at Ironman Arizona a few weeks ago and went 8:11 as a 20-year-old in only, what's that, like your third ever Ironman?
That was my fourth, yeah.
Fourth?
Fourth, yeah, full, but Penticton swim's canceled. But yeah, fourth full basically.
Yeah, so Zach won outright, not just his age group, he won his age group, but then also, yeah, out of everyone, he beat everyone at Ironman Arizona. So, of course, the boys and I wanted to have him on to get all of his secrets and find out how he's gotten so fast. And today we're going to be talking about his training leading up to Arizona. Then I know Sade and Mike are really dying to know about the race itself and his mentality going into that. And then we're going to be asking him a few questions on what's next because I'm sure everyone's been wondering that as well. So, Zachary, welcome to the podcast once again. And yeah, I guess if you want to just talk about kind of training leading up, kind of your biggest sessions or some maybe key sessions, and then if you want to dive into like one of your like biggest weeks maybe and take us through like a day by day, yeah, feel free to share as much or as little as you want and feel comfortable with.
Awesome. Yeah, good to be back. Happy to chat to you guys. Yeah, so kind of the whole like it's a whole journey, I guess, because it sounds a little philosophical, but I don't think there was like a one build for this race, but it's really like this whole year, like the day after, because I did Ironman Arizona last year. So it was like the day after, right? I was already kind of motivated to do this one again because it's flat and fast and then have different races. So it was really like the whole year was kind of a build up for that one in my mind, but maybe not in my coach's mind. But specifically for this race, it kind of started after Ironman Penticton, which was 10 weeks ago now. So 9 or 8 weeks before Arizona. And so that race went actually really well, but the swim was canceled. So it was like a time trial start, bike, and then run. And my bike was, yeah, very strong on that race, but it's completely different. It was like a hilly course. So I trained all summer on like super hilly terrain, like in Kelowna, it's super hilly. No, I had done one trainer ride maybe before that one or two. I had barely done any trainer rides. So that race went really well and was a good indicator, but the swim was canceled, so we still didn't know like how I could do. Well, not yeah, how I could do like over the full distance. But we were happy with the run. The bike was solid, so it was kind of just to build from that race, and just like the smaller gains from that one, and like some mistakes that I had done. And we didn't really know where my swim was at, and I'll talk about that later in the race because it wasn't the best uh, swim. But how did training look like? So also I started university the week after Penticton, so that was kind of completely different than the summer, right? So I take 4 classes with they have 2 lectures each, so it's quite a bit of classes, and I have some labs. So the training we tried to keep the same volume around, so that's just around 25 hours. Yeah, I'd say trying to hit 25 hours with the classes. It's a lot different because I'm not recovering as well. And then some sessions are I'm just a little more tired, or I have to do them earlier or later. But I was able to hold it together for about, I'd say 5 or 6 weeks with school, 25 hours consistently. And then the last 2 to 3 weeks before the race, I was starting to get really tired and I had like exams and yeah, it was kind of a mess. Not a mess. It was not a mess, but I was starting to feel like the race has to come soon because it's just getting a lot. And then specifics, I feel like I would need a question because we train so much, right? Do you guys have anything specific like in terms of training?
I was gonna ask you a question about school actually.
Yeah.
You're studying kinesiology, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. And what year are you in now?
Okay, yeah, third year
Okay.
out of four. I might need 4.5 years because I'm it's supposed to be 5 classes a semester, but I take four and some summer classes. But yeah,
Nice.
4 to 4.5. Um, yeah, kinesiology. Not exactly sure what I'll do with that, but always good to have a degree. And then
Yeah.
yeah, go from there.
Yeah, so for a training question, do you want to just go through what a general week looks like? So like the breakdown, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, just like what you do on each day. It doesn't have to be the exact session, but like let's say
Mhm.
Monday you do like an easy swim or active recovery day, or you can just go through your whole week in terms of
Yeah,
training.
let me kind of look.
Really quickly, while Zach's looking for a week, I know one of something that really, not really hit home, but something made me laugh at least was one of your Strava titles before the race. It was like, you finished up like, I don't know, like an 8 hour training day, and then you said, they have to go work from like 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. to pay for the flight or something like that. So, full-time student athlete and working. And so that's something I've really respected about Zach. Yeah, a bunch of guys, like including myself, that training, 25, 30 hours a week, but we don't have much else going on. But here's Zach, full-time studying. And honestly, I was talking to Sayed about this earlier. I think honestly, being a student athlete is harder than just having a 9 to 5 job and training full time as well, just because you have that so much added stress. At work, I mean, you can kind of slack off and no one really cares. But being a student, you have to perform. I mean, you're taking exams and whatnot, so just that extra mental stress too. Definitely not to be taken lightly.
Yeah, definitely. You got to keep studying. And yeah, like you said, I also have two smaller jobs on the side as well. So I work at like a running shoe store, just like a couple hours a week. And then I also work at the university. Like I'm in the dorms right now. So this is my dorm. So this is where I sleep and train on the bike. Um, and so I work here and then I have to like make sure like the residents are safe. So I have every now and then I
No,
have
sorry,
to,
you're a resident advisor or an RA.
yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah,
nice, nice. I like it.
so every now and then I have to walk around the buildings to make sure everything's safe. And on weekends, it's not every weekend because there's a lot of us, but it's up to 1 a.m., right? So I have to walk around at 1 a.m. So
Mm.
that like, really has an impact on the training, which is like so I have to I just sleep in, right, as much as possible. I try to because if you don't sleep enough, right, the performance is just not going to work. So
Mm.
sometimes I just have to sleep till 9, 10, which yeah, then I have to squeeze everything in. But I just call that zone one training because I just have to walk around the building. But yeah, so in terms of sorry, do you have a question?
No, no, no. Go ahead with the week. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, in terms of the week, Monday's always kind of easy. Usually just like activation, one or two sports, not all three. So either bike or swim, maybe just bike, maybe just swim. That's Monday because the weekends are usually pretty big. Yeah, and then Tuesdays I have a hard run usually, but never like super hard, kind of just like tempo and stuff. Because you
Mhm.
kind of remember, like in an Ironman, you're not running that fast, so it's really just like upper aerobic, never super hard, sorry. And then a swim as well. Wednesdays I usually do all three, Thursdays as well. And then that really changes up like when is a hard bike, when it's some Thursdays it's a hard bike, sometimes it's Wednesday. And then sometimes uh yeah, a hard run on one or both days.
Mhm.
And then when I mean hard, like it's not always super hard. It's kind of just like a bit of intensity, and that's one of the big difference I've seen like with my old training and this training is that I have a lot more intensity, but it's not super high intensity, right? It's just adding
Mhm.
a bit of intensity throughout the week, just so you get a little more stimulus in your body. So yeah, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I try to survive Thursdays, and then Fridays is easy again. So it's kind
I
of like,
always laugh when I see made it to another Friday on the Strava.
so yeah, so Fridays I have easy, and then I work as well at the running store. So it's kind of like good to catch up. And then Saturdays, Sundays, pretty big days. But yeah, the difference between this build is that I don't always have I don't have like one really big day where I do like a really well, I always have the long ride, but then I have a short swim, short run. So it's
Mm-hmm.
more like kind of spread out, consistent days rather than like one 7, 8 hour day, but it's more like consistently 3 to 4 hours. So
Mm-hmm.
on like the weekends, it's not that much longer. Maybe maybe for like 2 or 3 of the really big weeks, like 6 hours a day on the weekends,
Hmm.
but it's never like super, super long, just so that I think I can recover better and then just tackle a little more intensity as well. But that's the other thing. I kind of just look at whatever my coach gives me and I just do it. I never really question it. So yeah, I trust him and I just kind of do what what he says. Yeah.
Who is your coach?
Joe Spindler.
Okay.
Yeah. Same
And when
coach.
did you guys start working together?
June 1st. So what is it now?
Nice.
Yeah, so I do think that Ironman Penticton still had like my fitness was kind of still from before I was coached by him. And then this last training block was like definitely like all the work I got from his training. I think it was really emphasized in this race. Yeah, compared to the other races in the summer, it's kind of like from training from the whole winter that I did with my other coach and a little bit of his, but then yeah, now it's been like 4 months or something. So it really is his coaching or training. Yeah.
And you said one of the differences between like road training and this one was kind of like the sprinkling of intensity throughout the week. Are there any bigger differences you've seen, yeah, specifically in like what is like one of the sports completely different, you're training it different, or are there also similarities that you've seen as well? Or I guess
Mm,
also kind of what have you seen the most benefit from?
yeah, so I think yeah, the biggest thing would be like the sprinkled intensity. Yeah, just a little more intensity throughout the week in like every sport. And then also not the really big days, just more consistent days, just so that you can recover and have that intensity. So I don't do as many like super easy rides or runs anymore. They kind of just have a little more intensity. Or I can also push the whatever you feel like is easy, you can push it. Um, and then I'd say also like monitoring and intensity is a lot by feel as well. I do a lot by feel, a lot less by heart rate, because sometimes your heart rate just like it looks high or it looks low, and that kind of just pisses me off. Or like I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, it's not always super consistent. Like you see like the same trends over the year, right? Like what zones you're in. But I do a lot more by feel, and then one day like I'll feel a lot better, so I can push the watts a bit, and then some days I just feel like a lot more tired. So instead of looking at the heart rate, I kind of just go by feel. But that I but then I do know my zones, right? So if it's like way off or way under, like I'm not going to try to do a threshold set when I'm feeling terrible, 50 watts under, because that's how I'm feeling. It's kind of just in that range, but a lot by feel, and then maybe on the upper range or on the lower range. But I usually try to just stay on the lower range. I never try to push it too hard, just so that you can, especially when I'm so busy, just so that you can recover. And then it's kind of all about the next session, not
Mm-hmm.
the session you're doing. It is about the session you're doing, and they're super important sessions, but yeah, it's about the next session and the consistency. But yeah, consistency is like a classic, I feel like.
And
Especially
then
with
I
that.
know you mentioned intensity control. So do you ever use, I know you just said RPE and I love RPE and all that. Do you ever use lactate at all? Or is that your coach ever use lactate with any other athletes? Or is that not something that you and your coach do at all?
Uh, for me, no, we never really use lactate. I've used lactate just for testing
Hmm.
with this coach, like for testing on the run, but in training, never. Because
Okay.
yeah, because you only really need lactate if you want to go slower, because
Hmm.
lactate's always going to tell you your ceiling. And then I guess if you're really like if you're Christian, then it'll tell you to go faster. but most of the time the lactate's too high, so you're just going easier. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, and it's super expensive. Like I did one lactate run test, cost me too much money.
Those strips get pricey.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also yeah, I just don't think it's like the best use of like your time. And I don't know.
Yeah, no, just to put on that, as Leon said, well, as well, people are testing lactate. He's training, so
Yeah,
I thought that was the funniest thing ever on his Instagram story. So, yeah, I could probably agree with that as well.
yeah, definitely. No, I saw that too. That's the same thing. And unless you really know you also really need to know what you're doing and what you're doing with the lactate. And then
Hmm.
usually if someone takes lactate for you, it's a lot like trying to do it yourself. You get a lot of errors, and then yeah, just
Hmm. Yep.
there's plus there's so many other things you can do, right? And if you're staying like within your zone that you know that you've tested, like on the lower to middle end, you're usually like fine. It's not like yeah,
Hmm.
it's not gonna have too much of an effect.
So do you want to go into like take us through like day by day, like one big week, maybe like 4 or 5 weeks out from Ironman Arizona, and just take us through some of the sessions that you did? That'd be pretty interesting if you had it on Training Peaks or Strava.
Okay. Uh, yeah. So I get well. So the other difference actually is that I swim only 4 to 5 times a week. I used to
Hmm.
consistently swim 6 times a week, and now we kind of dropped it down, but it is a lot more intensity as well. I usually only there's intensity pretty much every session. Um, except when I'm really tired, then I just do an easy swim. But yeah, throughout the week, Monday, easy ride, and then Tuesday,
How long?
oh, really specifics.
Oh, we want the numbers.
I don't know if I can say that specific. These plans are really pricey because
As much or little as you want. Go ahead.
I could tell you some important sessions.
All right. How about that? That works.
I could tell you some, yeah. Um, let me look because I don't even know what
Hey, just
the
give us one big swim, one big bike, and then one big run of the build. And let's start off with the big run. So this you can ask Parker. This
yeah, yeah.
workout this is my favorite workout I've ever seen on Strava, and I love it. So it was the 30 by 800. Can you just give us a little details on that workout? I thought that workout was awesome.
Yeah, okay, yeah, yeah. So that was actually 11 days from the race. So it was, yeah, like said 30 by 800 with 200. So it's kind of like over under, so over Ironman pace and then um under pace. Yeah, so yeah, the 800's over and then the 200's under. And that 30 with no stopping. I think I switched shoes twice. So I used three different shoes throughout the session, every 12, like after 12 and then 24. And then I did the last few with my race shoes. But yeah, I had like a set target, but it was also a lot by feel, right? You just want to feel as smooth as possible because it's so long also. So it's really just like the consistent reps, right? I'm not running ridiculous paces, but it's just consistency throughout the 30 reps and then trying to recover between the 200s, in the 200s, but still like I was running like 430 per K. Oh, I don't know what that is in miles, but
I think it was like 5:30 pace, right?
for
For
the
the
eight for the
for the
800,
800, yeah, for the 800 is like 5:30, and then
It was
you're
like
for the offer
245
at
for the
like
800s, right?
yeah, around there.
Yep.
And then and it was supposed to be a minute for the 200s, but I kind of would just go through whatever I would jog it through, I would kind of just go. So instead of going on a minute, I'd just go, it was like 55 or something. So I think it was yeah, 344 per K for 30K. Is that 6 minute per mile? I think that's
you're at 609 for 20 however many miles, like 20 22 miles.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was 11 days out from the race, and that tires your body out pretty hard because with warm
Hmm.
up and cool down is 36 kilometers. Yeah. That was a good workout. That's when I knew like, okay,
Yep.
pretty pretty good. Like the endurance is there, and that was our kind of goal for this build to get that run endurance up. So I had some double runs, some longer runs, and then those longer. yeah, longer workouts. That was yeah, that was a good one. But that one, yeah, I did it also all alone. So
Hmm.
it's not an easy one. Yeah, it's hard because
Yeah.
it's also in the middle of a build. Like I didn't rest or whatever. And then the
Hmm.
next day I had like some intervals on the bike. So that was like not hard intervals, but yeah, some intervals. So your legs are just really yeah. Then you're like, wow, I need to start recovering or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of for this race, I only tapered like three days before. So it was like kind of a different approach too. So I was
Why
holding
was that? Did your coach say?
um no.
No.
Yeah, just different approach, kind of push it and then see, which is, I guess is a bit risky. But I know I can recover pretty quickly if I like if you reduce the volume a lot and then just add like no intensity, barely any volume. I know I can recover in 3 days because I did that. I've done that before. Yeah, and then like the race kind of just feels natural into your training. And I like to go into races like not that it's like a training session, but it's just another day on the bike, really, but you just gotta push hard. So I kind of like the rhythm of not changing your whole training up. Um, because a lot of people like after 10 days from the race, 2 weeks or 1 week, I don't know, they like change everything, reduce volume, intensity or whatever, and then it's like, okay, everything's kind of changed and now they have to go as hard as they can um in the race. So I kind of just like that consistent flow of training straight into the race. Because if you are strong and fit, you can taper, rest, taper kind of quick, and then just rip it.
Yep. So we heard that we heard so everyone's heard about the big run. So what was like the big memorable swim and big memorable bike then?
Well, that's kind of like the other thing. I feel like I didn't have like a crazy bike.
Hmm.
The swim's kind of just consistent, like 4K, 4 to 5.
What was
The
that one swim where you did like 40 by 100 or something like that? What was it? 40 or um you
I
did
think
that one leading up to the race.
I think 30,
Was
30
it
by
30?
leaving
What
on
were
one.
you holding?
I was leaving on 130,
In meters, right?
yeah, in meters. Coming in at 120.
Hmm.
But that in a 25-meter pool, it's a bit too easy. Like I think I have to go a little faster and start swimming a long course
Hmm.
because I think there's a big difference between, and I think yeah, in the US like yards, that's even shorter.
Yeah, come swim in a 25-yard pool here.
Yeah, the day or 2 days or the day before the race, I swam in a 25 yard and I was like, holy, I'm flying. So it's actually, yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, long course, we're going to start swimming the long course because it's a lot harder to to hold pace like throughout the session
Hmm.
uh, in a 50-meter pool. Yeah. And then open water as well. And I think that would help translate. But then the bike, yeah, it's kind of just consistent. I actually didn't do like, I would have liked to do a bit of a longer ride. My longest ride was 4 hours and 20 minutes, which
Oh
is
wow.
what I biked. I didn't do anything longer than that. I would have liked to do that, but mostly just outside, not inside. I can't do that. Well, I
Hmm.
could, but then it started being really cold and stuff. But I did the yeah 4 hours consistently for 4 hours Saturdays consistently for 6 7 weeks, maybe 8 weeks. I'm not sure. And then throughout the week, it's just like 2 to 3 hour rides. But yeah, there really wasn't one big ride. There's a lot of like small rides with a bit of intensity, and then the long ride on Saturday with also some intensity. And then but I did bike, yeah, 6 days a week. Um, which yeah, like Mark Cavendish, Mark Cavendish says, the more you bike, the better you'll get, you know. But
Hmm.
that's
Yep.
that's the thing with biking, yeah.
And now were a lot of your intervals, leading up to the Ironman, were they right? Or when you say intensity, is that intensity like Ironman specific intensity? So, like, let's say you were targeting 250 watts. Was a lot of your riding at 250, or were you doing more stuff at like threshold close to like 300 to 350, or a lot easier? Like, what was it more comprised of?
A lot of over slightly over race pace, maybe like dream race pace on a really, really good day, but not really what I would actually hold. But yeah, over Ironman intensity. Yeah. I didn't, yeah, because we don't really set. our targets before the in training. We set them just before the race. So we don't train at a race intensity because that kind of can change. And then it depends on the race too, race dynamics. Yeah, race dynamics, like whoever's there and kind of how you're feeling throughout the day. So we don't have like target race powers throughout the build. No. So honestly, yeah, I didn't know if it was going to be over or under race power. But I knew it was like pretty high because I could hold it for like 15, 20-minute intervals, like pretty comfortably, but you're pushing it. Yeah, that was and then I did do a little bit of VO2 max. Yeah, I kind of forget because it's kind of crazy when you do a race, you kind of forget and it goes well. You kind of forget all the hard work you put in, right? And you're like, wow, I just did that, forget it, forget all the hard. It wasn't that hard after all, but yeah, no, the training was pretty hard leading up to the race, especially with school and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of the race, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, sure.
We can just have
Yeah, just go through swim by because I know I was actually going to ask you this too because I know how good of a swimmer you are, and so when I saw you come out the 56, I was like, oh, I wonder, you must not be having too good of a day. But yeah, no, take us through swim, bike, run, and your breakfast. We're always interested to hear what top athletes have before a race.
Okay, yeah. So morning of, I always have a peanut butter on toast and a banana. And it's kind of just try to eat as much as I can, but you don't eat too much. Plus a gel, some liquid carbs like in the bottle. And then yeah, I basically I know a lot of athletes that don't like to have like food like in the morning or before the race or like leading like a couple hours before the race, but I eat until I think I was eating some bread 20 minutes before the start because I need like my stomach to
Just
be
show up with a
full.
loaf of bread.
Yeah. It's just I was trying to before like while I was putting on my wetsuit, I was eating some bread as well, just so that my stomach feels full. Because if you're only on like liquid carbs and gels already, that's gonna be like for like 10 hours, that's super long. So yeah, that's what I had for breakfast. And then yeah, I guess I'll just go straight into the swim. And so that's the thing with age group swimming, it's kind of like everyone kind of just goes every 5 seconds. So you don't really know who's actually fast. And I knew a couple guys who were gonna swim well, which they did. I think they swam at 51 or 52. Luke Tasker and Corey, I don't know his last name, but they swam at 52. But I think they started behind me, and so I had no idea where. It was kind of a bit of a mess the first like 200 meters because you don't know who's fast and you don't know who is. And then we were going straight into the sun, like that was rising. And so I kind of just swam on my own pace. And then I was like seeing people like in the front and in front of I was like I would try to like pick it up a bit. This is like in the first few hundred meters and I wasn't like getting anywhere really. And so this guy after like a K or so, like I was swimming just all by myself. After a K or so, someone swims by me and I just hop on his feet. And I basically just did that for like another 2K. And I thought the big thing why I think I swam 56 is because I really thought we were swimming a lot faster. And then like a couple hundred meters before the end of the swim, I look at my watch and we're already at like 52 minutes. And I'm like, oh shit, like we were not swimming as fast as I thought. Because I was on his feet and he was kicking really hard. So I had a nice draft. I was swimming like, yeah, zone 1, zone 2, like super easy. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm really comfortable. I was kind of fit in the pool, so just stay at this pace. And then turns out the pace was a lot slower. So I think, yeah. So I think I could have swam faster and then I also, once I saw the time, like a couple hundred meters from the end, I was like, oh wow, I'm not gonna just surge now just to like the max I would get would be like 30 seconds. So I'm just gonna swim it easy and then try to hopefully the other guys didn't swim too fast. Um, So yeah, that was the biggest thing in the swim. I just thought we were swimming faster and I was swimming comfortable, but we weren't swimming very fast. So get out of the water in 56, I think. Transition, and then I hop on my bike and I have my brother was there, so he tells me to split 4 minutes. And I'm like, okay, that's not too bad because we knew these guys were good swimmers, so we knew they were gonna come out of the water in front of me, but we didn't know by how much because I didn't think I could swim a 51. So 4 minutes, I was like, okay, that's like the maximum we were hoping. That's quite a bit. So I kind of went straight to work on the bike. It's 3 loops, like almost 100% flat, just like a false flat out, and then but you're in TT basically the whole way. And so I kind of went out, yeah, on the upper end of what we were thinking. Um, and then at the first turnaround, so 45 minutes in, the gap is down to 2 minutes. So I was like, oh, like, did I just make up 2 minutes or maybe that was the wrong split or whatever? So I'm like, okay, just keep hammering it out.
Was
And
there a
then
wind? Because last time I raced Arizona, there was a pretty strong headwind going out.
the first 2 laps there was pretty calm. And then the last lap there was a headwind on the way home. And
Oh.
yeah, that was rough. But honestly, with the helmet, TT helmet and my aero position, I never know where the wind's coming from. Because usually I'm just going 40 both ways. And I'm like, okay, I'm going 40 a little faster on one way. Yeah. So after 670K, so 50 miles, I catch the guys. I'm like, that was way faster than I thought. Like I thought it was gonna take me the whole ride to even just get close to them. Because they were also two, so they could be working together because 12 meters is like, not that much, and there's a lot of age groupers passing on the second and third lap. So I catch them at the start of the second lap, and then I go 12 meters behind them, and then I'm like sitting up, pedaling zone 1 or 2, and I'm like, what the heck? This 12-meter thing is. I'm like, okay, well, I must be biking a lot. Like I must be biking faster than them, and then with the 12 meters back, it's even easier. So then I kind of just chilled there for like 10, 15 minutes, and then I just went for it. I attacked on both of them. I did over 300 watts for 4 to 5 minutes. Um, and I didn't look back. I had no idea if they were following the move or not. I was just like, go for it. And then the next turnaround, which was 30 minutes later, I got a gap, and I think it was a minute, just over a minute on the second, who tried to go with me but didn't hold. I was like, okay, well, this is perfect. Just keep it up. And then, yeah, that attack kind of got to my legs. The last lap was really rough. I was just trying to hold on. The last like hour was like the watts were really down. So I was just trying to hold like as arrow as possible and trying to just get to the end of the bike. And yeah, I was feeling pretty bad actually. And we kind of found out why I was feeling so bad the last lap. But I get off the bike and like I was feeling really terrible. Like my vision was kind of blurry. Yeah, it was. And then we kind of found out after the races that I was a bit dehydrated because I had taken barely any water, just carbs in my bottles. So I had like
Mm.
no water in me. So I like sit down in transition and I'm like can barely speak to the to the I was like, how am I like you can't think too much, right? But I was like, how the hell am I gonna run a marathon? Like I'm trying to tie my shoelace. Like I look like Magnus Didlev in like I couldn't see, and I'm like, I need some water, I need some water, and then they gave me a lot of water. I like drink as much water as I can, and then I'm like, okay, well, you're leading the race, you gotta just go for it. So I kind of set out at the most comfortable pace I could. That was on pace to what we were thinking, which was a 2:48
Mhm.
Pretty comfortable.
marathon. Yeah. Well,
Oh,
I
and
was
how
happy.
many carbs did you take on during the bike per hour?
Um, I think it was 120.
Okay.
120, but it was a little, yeah, I did a little too much too because I was throwing up on the bike.
Oh.
Because I was doing too concentrated. So yeah, that's the thing. I was dehydrated and I was doing way too concentrated carbs. So I was like throwing up um a lot of it. So I actually don't know how many carbs I had in my body, but I was getting like 120 around.
Was it as
Um,
bad as Christian and Queen K?
it was not that bad, but like yeah. Yeah, but then I was starting to feel like pretty shit the last lap, so I'm like, okay, maybe you need more carbs, so I would like take down more gels, but I just needed to like have a whole bottle of water. But I would just grab water, like splash it in my face, drink a couple sips, and then throw it out, and then just hold my carbs in my bike. And I was like, yeah. So I don't know. You live and learn. So yeah, I go out at 4 minute per K, and then I held that pace for about 30K again, 32K, and then yeah, I kind of slowed down a bit. And there was actually Corey who was chasing me down on the run, so I got like an 8 minute gap on him on the bike, and he was chasing me down the whole run basically. And then I was able to hold him off because I think he came 3 minutes, 2.5, 3 minutes behind me. And so yeah, I was happy to hold him off because I know he was coming, but I also knew I had like one more gear in case he did catch me. I could probably like try to sprint the last 2K. But yeah, he never caught me. And yeah, that's that's basically how it went. Yeah, the run is basically just whoever slows down the least can can do is can do very good. So I was just trying to hold the pace as close to my target pace as possible. I did slow down a bit. Like I ran a bit slower than what we thought, but yeah, a win is a win.
I had a question when because I saw on your Instagram when you came across the line and you grabbed the banner, it looked like on your arm like you had like a little black patch on
Yeah,
each. I don't know if you're allowed to talk about that or what it is.
yeah, no, it's nothing secret. It's actually super simple. It's just because my arms are so tight together on the bike in the TT
Yep.
position. So in the other races, I would start like chafing so bad it would basically bleed
Yeah.
on the bottles. So, but I think a lot of people thought it was some secret.
You should have said it's like a secret hydration sensor something.
I've seen people use like an electrolyte patch that like they put on their forearm or their bicep, and I wasn't sure if that was something like that,
Yeah.
but no, okay,
Oh,
makes sense.
but that's the thing. I think most people think this whole performance is like, I mean, it is pretty fast, but I think there's a lot more to be done too. And like, there's not that many
Sounds like the
secrets.
first half of the race was zone one for you. So
Yeah, well, swim maybe. Um, yeah. But there's not that many secrets, right? It's like work as hard as you can, stay consistent, eat well, sleep, race, race smart and hard. You know, you gotta just race smart. Ironman's so long, and people think, yeah. Well, we saw at the World Champs, that was crazy when
Mhm.
everyone blew up, kind of. But if you race smart and stick to, that's kind of like why the biggest thing why I like Ironman so much is because you can race it, but you can kind of just stick to your zones. And if you do, you'll do pretty good because you should kind of know exactly where you'll finish. I think every race I've done this year, I finished pretty much where we thought in terms of time. Yeah.
Zach, are you tracking your sleep or like how much sleep are you striving for each night?
Um, yeah, I try to get definitely over 8 hours and then closer to 9. I try to get closer to 9. But my Garmin watch actually like records my sleep super poorly. I think it's like my skin or something, but
Mhm.
it never thinks I'm in REM, whatever I have. It says I have poor sleep quality every single night. And I don't know why.
the stages are never accurate with any of the watches, but it's usually just the
But
time.
yeah, but if you don't hit REM, like it thinks or REM or deep, I don't know. It thinks like you had poor sleep. So every night I wake up, like I stopped kind of looking at it. I kind of just look at the time. But yeah,
Yeah.
I usually between 8.5 and 9. I think that's like I've been pretty consistent. And the thing I never, yeah, I don't go to bed at the same time every night. That's like one of the things like I don't really like compared to the summer. I'd be in bed like 9:30 every night. But here it's like, oh, I have a work meeting. I have to study a little later. I have to do the rounds or whatever. So it really changes a lot. Like one day I'll have to go to bed at midnight, and then the next day it's like, oh, I don't have to do anything. I can go to bed now. But it's like 9. So I try to sleep, but then so yeah, that's the biggest thing, and that's one of the things I changed like after university and stuff. Definitely try to a consistent sleep um is definitely better. But I think I still get all the hours of sleep because I know without that sleep, my performance goes down so much, like my training and then everything just gets so much harder. So I get the amount of sleep, but it's never consistent.
Yeah.
Then you're saying you're throwing up on the bike and then you're holding pace on so you ran a 2:51 on the run. So what was the hardest part of the race? The bike or the run? And what's your like mentality during those hard times during the race? Especially like the bikes. I mean the run. So like what's your mentality on the bike on the run when you're like 14 miles in and you're like dying, but you're still holding pace?
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, well, the hardest part of the race is always the back half of the marathon, right? Whatever you do in the first half of the race, you know the second part of the marathon is the hardest. So although I was feeling really shit on the bike the last hour, it was a it was a hard ride, but it wasn't as like difficult as the run. And then I think yeah, one of my strength is kind of just to like shut my whole brain off and just hold the pace or hold the power or whatever, right? So I think yeah, in the marathon that's so important. You just have to hold pace no matter what. Because if you do the calculations correctly, you should be able to hold the pace the whole way, right? You can't be like, okay, I wasn't gonna go out way faster than what I thought I could finish around. So I'm like, if I hold this pace, like I should be able to finish. Um, and so yeah, when you start hurting, you you just that's a hard one. I don't know. You really got to shut your brain off and not think too much, right? You can't overthink. And you just get from aid station to aid station, try to keep up with fueling.
Mhm.
Like that's the thing. I just think about fueling, and then this race specifically was 3 run loops, but within each loop there was like 2 loops because you cross the lake like on a bridge. There's one loop, cross the bridge, and then another loop, and then come back. So it's kind of like 6 loops. So breaking it up into those is makes it a lot easier because you can't think, oh wow, I have this much to go. So you can't think you have like over halfway of the whole marathon to go. You'll just say, okay, I'll just finish this loop, which is like 6K, 4 or 5 miles, and then I'll be on the next loop and then try to finish that one. So yeah, breaking it up and then holding pace for those loops. So you're like, okay, I need to hold pace for this whole section. That definitely helps, and that's what got me through this marathon because yeah, the first loop kind of feels not too bad because the pace is like pretty comfortable. Then the second loop you're like, okay, the third loop, the third loop's gonna be even harder than the second loop, and the second loop's pretty hard. And then third, yeah, and then you're just like, okay, pretend like this is kind of like the last loop because the last one you'll have to give it everything. And then on the last one, you just give it everything, and usually the pace slows down a little bit. Like if you've seen any world championship race, they always positive split by like a couple minutes. Like even Patrick Lange. So you know it's gonna slow down, but you gotta just keep it as close to what you started off as possible. And if you're on top of nutrition, you should be able to do that. But it's also the legs that just are destroyed most of the time, right? The quads and hamstrings. And actually at this race specifically, my for the first time ever, I never cramp. I don't think I've ever gotten a cramp in my life. I don't know why. I don't think I sweat a lot of sodium or whatever. But my left calf was getting super tight and it was almost cramping. And this was on the third loop. Um, and so I'm still in the lead, and I'm like, the worst thing that could happen right now is I start walking, right, because of this cramp or whatever. So I'm like, if you have to pull the pace like 10 seconds per K a bit like slower, but not cramp, you'll still probably win. So I was also doing the math on the guy that was chasing me. I'm like, okay, if I run this slow, he's still good. But yeah, that was the close call. My left calf, like, was I think it was just maybe lack of sodium too, because I don't take that much sodium, but I probably should. Yeah,
Throwing up will also dehydrate you, so I'm sure that that played a factor in that.
yeah, definitely. But that's the thing. There's so many little things that you learn every race, and that's like kind of the most important thing, just to not make the same mistake again. So I know like in terms of fueling, what to do again, and then yeah, the swim too. So yeah, it's kind of just learn from every race as much as possible. And that's like another thing, just you got to always want to do better than what you did, or you want more, right? Like I think a lot of people look at this performance as crazy, like really it's really fast, like it is pretty fast, I guess. But I know there are so many things that could have made it even faster that I know I could have gone faster, or at least next race I can do better. And so that's super important.
And then for the fueling on the run, are you carrying any of your fuel? Or are you getting everything from aid station? And what do you do at each aid station? So during the
Mm,
run.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I don't carry anything. So just aid
Mhm.
station mostly. Gel. So always gel. As many gels as I can without throwing up on the run. As many gels and
So you take a gel every aid station then?
that's no, that's a bit too hard because that's like every 8 minutes. I'd say every two, maybe three, and then a
Okay.
bit less the back half because you're already loaded on carbs. So a
Hmm.
bit more gels at the first half because it's not as hard to get them down. Um, but I try to keep like two or three on me at all times from the aid station, just so that if you miss one, you can take one in between aid stations or whatever. Um, and then water, and then I had a lot of Coca-Cola from the cups, but you don't get that much because
Hmm.
in yeah, I don't have you guys tried mortal hydration?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
just
I don't
not.
know. I took it in the last race, and I would get a stitch or like a cramp in my stomach
Mhm.
every time I had one of the cups of that. So I was like, okay, for this race, just don't take that. And Coke probably has like the same. Well, yeah. But then you also don't get that much, right? It's very little. And then I was getting even more dehydrated on the run because like the cups again, it's not that much water. So every single aid station, water, every single one. And then you get the special needs, and the special needs really revived me because I had a full bottle of water and some
Mm.
liquid. So I took down the whole bottle, and then I had a little boost of like energy. Well, like I think it's just a bit of rehydration for the last lap. And I was like, okay, I'm feeling a lot better than the last 2K of the second lap. So yeah, having like a full bottle um in the special needs. But that's really it. Yeah. Just yeah, keeping it as simple as possible. Just carbs. But I don't yeah, that's the thing. I don't think I'm as a salty sweater as Parker, because you were telling me you're taking 2,000 milligrams of sodium.
Oh no, I so per liter of sweat, I got tested in Kona. I was the saltiest sweater they tested all week. I lose 2,000 milligrams of sodium per liter, and I sweat, probably between 1.5 to 2 liters an hour. So that's between 3 to 4,000 milligrams of sodium per hour in hot conditions.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I don't
I
think
came off the bike in Kona, and my entire tri suit was covered in salt.
yeah, I
Mhm.
saw that. But
Yeah.
then does the amount of salt you take in affect the amount you sweat? Like a bit, right?
I'm
Or
sure
no?
I'm sure there's some, yeah. Yeah, probably. But if you're sweating that much, then yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, you need as much sodium, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. 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 That's the thing. I don't know how much sodium I sweat, but not as much. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like a pretty solid day overall, definitely. But of course, the most important question is what was the post-race meal after everything was done and dusted?
Post-race meal. Well, I think most people after a race they can kind of like eat food. I don't know. I see them like most athletes, but I've just taken so many gels and like so much carbs that I can't really eat for like many hours after. But I had chicken wings.
Nice.
Like
There
that's
you
the thing.
go.
I just need protein or meat. I can't have a single gram of carb after that. It's just too
Yeah.
much. But that's the
Mm,
secret in Ironman,
there
carbs.
you go. You want to talk a little bit about? I know you're still going to talk about with your coaches and whatnot, but do you have like a tentative race schedule of next year? Are there any like Ironmans or that you're kind of thinking of,
Hmm.
or any races in general?
Not any specific races, but now like I try to, instead of targeting specific races, I have to plan the year as a whole, right? From like the first race to the last, kind of take a holistic approach. And then that will be decided in like December. And then we'll also decide if I race professional or not in 2025. And that'll be with my coach, me, and my manager. Um, yeah, see if that's see whatever the best option is. Yeah. And that's also why I didn't take my knee slot.
Would love to see you at Texas though, if you can make the trip.
Yeah, yeah. Because that's in April.
April, yeah, last weekend of April.
Okay, yeah. That's because that's exams for us. Exams is December and April, and that's 70.3, and then 70.3 world champs, and then some good races in America. And then yeah, there's not a lot of pro races in America either, so it makes it
Mm-hmm.
kind of tricky. Or at least in Canada, I think there's no more races, no more Mont Tremblant. Yeah, the Penticton is gone, so yeah, that's also kind of tricky.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, anything else you want to touch on the race, or I guess any surprises, or like I mean, it's like you said, you knew where you're at, you knew where your fitness was, and it just came down to executing on race day, and you pretty much you hit your numbers. So to the outside world, it's kind of like, oh my God, this 20-year-old, he went 8:11, but for you, it's like it's what I expected.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we expected faster actually,
Mm-hmm.
but the swim was a bit slow. But that kind of makes me hungry for more, right? Just especially swimming. I know, like, even though I was swimming relatively pretty comfortable, I know like I wasn't gonna swim with that day. I wasn't gonna swim with the fastest guys, even if I was in a good position or whatever. So I really am hungry for that. So I think we gotta improve our swim.
And then I have one more race question. So what did it feel like crossing first and grabbing that tape? Because I know everyone dreams of winning an Ironman, grabbing the tape, and you finally achieved that goal. I know it was your goal to win and everything, but how did it actually feel grabbing that tape?
Uh, there's not much like it, I guess. There's like, because the amount, like, I think we all sacrifice quite a lot, right? For like training and stuff, and especially as a university, you miss like so much, like you miss like all the parties or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You miss all like the socials and stuff, and then just knowing that all this, it's not a sacrifice when you love it, but all the like kind of the sacrifice and all the hard work kind of just pays off, right? And like all in that moment, so focused and concentrated, and it only lasts like 5 seconds, right? But yeah, you'll always have that win. And since I started training like 5 years ago for triathlon and Ironman, I've always dreamed of grabbing a banner. So that was, I guess, my first. That was like amateur, but now the goal is going to be to grab a professional one in the years to come.
Mm-hmm.
That's like
Awesome.
the main goal. Yeah.
Have you hung the banner in your dorm yet?
Not yet, not yet. Yeah, I still have it. I just need to. I don't know if I want to hang it in here. I might wait till I get like an apartment.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, crazy feeling.
You should just
Yeah.
show up to your kinesiology final and handing that to your professor. Say, I think I know how to exercise correctly.
Well, exactly. Yeah. I thought I
Uh,
would get some exemption, but I don't. I still got to do all the work. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's a great way to end this episode. And if you guys do want to learn more about Zach and how he started, we touched on that and in the first episode that we recorded. I'll make sure to link that down below. Make sure to drop any comments, questions you have for Zach, and yeah, definitely go and follow him on his Instagram and socials. His Strava, as mentioned multiple times, is a great place for some entertainment. So we'll have that link below as well. But Zach, thanks again for joining, and yeah, we'll definitely have you back on hopefully in the future as a professional for sure. So very excited. And yeah, congrats again, man. That was pretty spectacular and definitely a lot of fun to watch you that day.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. It's always good chatting with you. I really enjoy the podcast, so keep it up. Yeah.
All
Thanks.
right. See you guys.
See you guys.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Try Hard podcast. If you enjoyed it, we'd appreciate it if you could share with others and leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can either DM us on Instagram, leave a comment on YouTube, or message us through the Spotify app. Lastly, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this week's episode, the Naperville Acupuncture Center. If you ever find yourself in the Chicagoland area and are dealing with some aches and pains, I cannot recommend Frank and Angela enough. They do an amazing job over there, and I promise you will leave feeling so much better. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you guys back here next week.